Good day, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Briareos Kerensky and welcome to the review of Cosmo Dreamer and Like Dreamer, known together as the Double D Collection. The name and art on the cover would imply rather risque indie games, but this couldn't be farther from the truth. Yes, there are a couple of gravity-defying character designs, but the pastel colors, soft lines and clean design make these two games more charming than anything else. And their mechanics make them good shooters as well, way more important than any graphic design choice. Cosmo Dreamer and Like Dreamer are vertical scrolling shooters developed by Outside, a small Japanese indie team, only available on Switch and PC. The two games share many mechanics, but in the Switch collection they are presented as two separate entities. This means you'll have to set input options twice for titles with the same base rules, something I always find irritating. Options are limited as well, and unfortunately there is no Tate mode. When played on large screens this is not a particularly big problem, but it can be tricky too when handheld, especially at the hardest difficulty mode. Like Dreamer makes better use of the sidebars, introducing a details window listing invisibility frames, inputs, grazed bullets and more. This window can only be used after going through the game once, and while useless while playing, it's an important tool to analyze saved replays. The Double D collection lacks any sort of online capability though, so there is no way to get someone else's replays. The core mechanics will immediately be familiar to shooter fans. Two firing modes, shoot and missile, with missile slowing you down for finer movement, a gauge shared by bombs and a skill of your choice, and bullet grazing. If this sounds like Dodonpachi, well, the B makes a cameo appearance as an enemy, along some other familiar faces. The two Dreamers take inspiration from many games, cave shooters for base mechanics, Psy-Warrior for grazing, Toho for bullet patterns, and more, and yet still fresh and their own games. Cosmo Dreamer only has one playable character, while Like Dreamer offers three with different speeds. Both games allow to customize shoot, missile, bomb and skill. The games offer similar weapon choices, and I've found homing and lock-on weapons work better in the game's context, as bosses do not fill up the entirety of the screen. Defeated enemies drop tokens, their worth valued by how close you were when shot down. Tokens float towards the bottom of the screen, and are not collected automatically when releasing the fire button. Instead, tokens will fly towards the player's character when on the upper side of the screen. To get the best score you need to play aggressively, and enemy patterns are designed around this, with them releasing their salvos only a second or so after entering the playable area, giving you time to adjust to incoming fire. Skills and bombs share the same meter, called Dream Level in Cosmo Dreamer and Mental State in Like Dreamer. I'll call them State Meter to make things easier. You fill this meter by attacking enemies at close range and collecting tokens, and you can fill it 3 times. State is reset when hit by bullets, or decreased by 1 with the appropriate skill. Other skills include increased firepower for either shot or missile, or both. The latter completely forgoes defense, but it's great for blazing through bosses and maximize time bonuses. Like Dreamer introduces a fever meter, charged under the same conditions as the state meter. When Fever mode activates, enemy bullets are converted into tokens, and for its duration attacks are more powerful and enemies worth more points. Fever mode deactivates when hit or when the meter runs out. Both games have a story mode and an arcade mode. The latter is curiously called Trial Mode and unlocked only after completing Story Mode once at any difficulty level. In Story Mode you can play stages in any order you want, as long as you have unlocked them, and they are independent of each other. Score, lives, bombs, everything is reset at the start. You can tackle any stage at any difficulty level, with any loadout as you wish. Trial Mode instead links all stages together and you keep everything between them, but you cannot change character or loadout without quitting and restarting everything from scratch. There is also Practice Mode, where you can set various parameters and, well, practice the stage you want. Both games include one secret stage, one extra stage with preset difficulty, as well as a boss rush. Difficulty ramps up nicely in both games, with patterns increasing in speed and ferocity, but not changing completely. Lower difficulty settings do a great job in teaching players enemy and boss patterns, leaving no possible option out. Enemy bullets are very clear to see thanks to their bright colors that contrast well to the player's hitbox, and if enemies have lunge attacks, these are clearly marked as well and never feel cheap, even when they mix with bullet attacks. All stages have their own enemies with their own attack patterns, and everything is mixed together in a rather masterful way, though you will have some deja vu moments from other shoot-em-ups due to how some enemies and stages are laid out. Sound effects are constant throughout both games and highlight perfectly incoming enemy bullets, boss life status, time limits on boss phases, and your own abilities. I went into these two games thinking they wouldn't be much. East Asia Soft has published some stinkers before, and instead I've got two quality shooters. They are not masterpieces, but the passion poured into them is palpable, and outside clearly understand what makes shooters great. The mechanics are interesting enough for veterans, but aren't complex to the point of overburdening players, stage and game length is just right, and both games offer a complete package, rounded out by a training mode and an in-game manual describing all mechanics and interface. Lack of Tate mode aside, there are only two things to report on the technical side. First, the game does slow down in handheld mode on the most intense patterns, while it remains at a rock-solid 60 FPS when docked. Slowdowns are noticeable, but aren't severe enough to be a detriment. Second, the analog stick feels faster than digital inputs, whether that is an arcade stick or a D-pad. It is less precise when dodging bullets, however, especially when coupled with faster movement speeds, but there were times when I actually preferred analog input over digital. Background tracks have been composed by a number of artists and fit their assigned stage perfectly. From the mellow and calm tones of the first stage in Like Dreamer, to the tense and foreboding notes of the black hole stage in Cosmo Dreamer, to the high tempo and sometimes playful tracks denoting bosses. Music is of high quality and it's a bit of a shame to have them covered by sound effects. Graphics work well and I've come to appreciate the character design. What really matters is that bullets are easy to read when playing, and both games accomplish it in spades. Just like mechanics and music, graphics ooze passion and they are a good blend of artistic flavor and utilitarian design. Both games offer a small gallery and in-game rewards based on your performance, with Like Dreamer adding an enemy gallery as well. Of the two games, I enjoy Like Dreamer more. More options, more extras, and overall it felt more refined. However, Cosmo Dreamer is still a good game on its own. And if I need to point something I don't like, you cannot skip Cosmo Dreamer's intro, only fast forward it. The Double D collection is available at PlayAsia and affiliated retailers in limited quantities as a physical edition for Switch. Both games are available separately as a digital download on Nintendo's eShop and Steam. If you like shooters, I highly recommend both. I hope you have enjoyed this review and you'll stick around for more. Briario Skarensky, over and out.